Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and David Warner just passed away yesterday, and I did mention him briefly in a video I did yesterday, but that won't be coming out until probably late August, and I wanted to do a video talking about him briefly, and then more a video idea of talking about actors that I would like to have seen appear or that would appear in Doctor Who, because I've always loved David Warner as an actor because he's in so many things that I like. I mean, and even things he's famous for I'm not as familiar with. Like, I've never actually watched Time Bandits or Time After Time, but I know he's legendary in them. I remember him from The Omen. I remember him from Tron, because I love both the Tron movies. I have both of the Tron movies down here. He's great in that. He's actually in a horror movie I like from the 80s, too, called Waxworks, which is really good if you've never seen it. It's also got Patrick Magee, and the guy who played Billy in Gremlins is in it. And I really like that movie. I haven't watched it in forever. Also, I forget his name. The guy who played Gimli in Lord of the Rings. He also played in Sliders. He's in it, too. But he's also in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, playing the scientist, like the TGIR or RI or whatever it is, scientist. He's in that. He's in a great episode of Perry Mason from the 80s and 90s revival of Perry Mason with Raymond Burr and Barbara Hellback. He's also in an episode of Babylon 5 from season 1, I believe. And then he is, of course, in Cold War. And I like Cold War. I like both of the Ice Warrior episodes in Modern Who, Empress of Mars and Cold War. They're both phenomenal. But I like Cold War. It's good on its own merits. It's a great story. It's a good update to the Ice Warriors as well. But part of the reason I love it, one of its pros, is it has David Warner in it. And David Warner's great in it. And I love the fact he's also the Unbound Doctor. I know, a parallel universe Doctor in the Unbound universe. I know he's famous for doing that as well. And I know he's supposed to be. I hope it was already done. Him and Christopher Eccleston are supposed to be doing something together for the 60th. I hope they got all of that recorded because I know Christopher Eccleston was very excited about it, and I like seeing Christopher Eccleston excited. So I hope they got to do it. And it's more David Warner. I mean, there's so many things David Warner has been in. He played in Star Trek V as a human. He played in Star Trek VI as Chancellor Gorkin. And even though he's only in that movie a short time, his presence is mesmerizing, very charismatic, especially for a Klingon. And then, of course, he's in the episode Chain of Command in Next Generation with Picard, when he's the Cardassian that's torturing Picard. There are 4 lights! So, I'm very grateful for the fact that we got David Warner in the Doctor Who universe, not just in audios, but in an episode, because he's such a phenomenal actor. He's in so many things that I enjoy. He's either guest starred or starred in so many things that I like, that he's just one of those actors that if you said his name and they're like, who's that, and you showed them a picture of him, they'd be like, I've seen that guy. That actually happened. One of my friends, I texted him, and he's like, I'm not sure who that was. And then I'm like, look him up, and then he texted me back, yeah, I recognize him. Exactly, he's that guy. He was also the voice of Ra's al Ghul in Batman the Animated Series. And that is, if I'm reading like a comic book with Ra's al Ghul, that's the voice I hear in my head. Him as Ra's al Ghul is a lot like Mark Hamill as the Joker. Like, anytime I'm watching something animated and somebody else is voicing the Joker, they may be fine. I've heard other people voice the Joker and they're fine. But there's always that small part of me that's a little disappointed it's not Mark Hamill. It's the same thing with Ra's al Ghul. If I'm playing a game or watching a show and it's not David Warner voicing Ra's al Ghul, I'm always a little disappointed. He's just so good. And at that detective, the way he says that, he's such a phenomenal actor. So I wanted to pay tribute to him, and then I wanted to talk about 5 actors that I either would like to see or would have liked to have seen in Doctor Who. My top 3 especially, but the other 2 are definitely worth mentioning too. Number 5 is William Shatner. I just think a lot of people would like to see Captain Kirk in Doctor Who. I know it probably won't happen, but I would love to see an episode of Doctor Who with William Shatner in it. The problem there is it would definitely be stunt casting. J&T would have loved it. And you don't want to draw so much attention to it that overpowers the story. You don't want the whole point of the story is Captain Kirk's in Doctor Who. You don't want that. But I still would like to see an episode if it was done right with him in it. Number 4 is Jeff Goldblum, who also made my list of people that should have been the Doctor. I had a Patreon exclusive video, I think, where I talked about people I think who would have made a good Doctor, and one of them was Jeff Goldblum, because Jeff Goldblum, just especially for that stereotypical quirky scientist role he plays a lot, he nails it. That's the Doctor perfectly. If there's ever an American that should have played the Doctor, it's Jeff Goldblum. But I would love to have him show up in the show, just because he does have that quirkiness to him, especially if he's playing his stereotypical type character. I wonder how well him and the Doctor would get along. That would be a lot of fun. And plus, I just think that would be one of those things a lot of people would like to see. Especially if he's playing a character that's Doctor-like. It's like the Doctor, even though it isn't the Doctor, he's almost playing a character who's almost just like the Doctor. That would be fun. I would enjoy that. And then my top 3, number 3 would have been Roddy Mcdowell. Ronnie McDowell, all 3 of my top 3 are actors that I have this strong fondness for. Like this strong love for, even though I might not like some of their most famous stuff, I have this strong attachment to them for a reason I can't even fully explain, but they mean the world to me. And one of them is Roddy Mcdowell. Even though I'm not a big fan of Planet of the Apes, that's probably the thing he's most famous for. Now, I love the first Planet of the Apes. It's phenomenal. With Charlton Heston chewing the whole scenery and everything. It's a great movie. It's not perfect, but it's a great movie with one of the best twists in cinema history. I mean, it's kind of one of the ones everybody knows about now. You can't really spring it on anybody. But it for its time especially, a phenomenal twist, a great movie. I love it. But most of the other Planet of the Apes movies I don't really care for. The modern ones are pretty good. But I don't get into them, and I never really watched the show. But I like him in other stuff. I think the thing that got me hooked on him especially was a TV series called The Night Gallery. Or just Night Gallery. I've got the box set in my hand. Was Night Gallery, which of course was created and hosted by Rod Serling from The Twilight Zone. It's basically The Twilight Zone in color tied to paintings, because all of the stories revolve around a painting. So it's basically like The Twilight Zone 2.0. While not being quite as good as The Twilight Zone, it has a couple stories that will rival anything in The Twilight Zone or close to it. But the pilot for Night Gallery was centered around 3 stories, 2 of which I adore. The middle one, Eyes, I'm not too keen on. But then there's the other 2. One's called The Escape Route, which is about a German officer from World War II. That one's phenomenal as well. Check it out. But then there's another one called The Cemetery, which has Roddy Mcdowell in it. And he basically plays a spoiled... Well, I won't say spoiled, but he plays the nephew to a rich uncle. And basically, he indirectly kills his uncle so he can get his uncle's money. And it's phenomenal. I don't want to go into it because it's probably one of my favorite pieces of television ever created. I love this story. It is creepy. It is scary. The acting in it is phenomenal. The suspense, the direction, the writing. Like, if I was naming top 25 pieces of television I've ever watched, this story's probably in it. I rank it right up there with Time Enough at Last and The Obsolete Man. We'll get to those in a minute. I absolutely love this story. If you've never seen it, check it out. It's part of the pilot episode of Night Gallery. And Roddy McDowell is phenomenal in it. And it's probably that one that got me so attached to him. But I've seen him in other stuff he's really good in. He's in an episode of Columbo where he murders his uncle, actually. Apparently that's a thing for him. But it's a really good episode, an early episode from season 1 of Columbo. He's also in a TV show called Fantastic Journey, which was pretty good. I haven't watched it since I was young, but I remembered really liking it. Also had one of the guys from the War of the Worlds TV series in it. And then he was also in the Fright Night movies in the 80s, and I enjoy those. I'm not as in love with them as I used to be, but I do enjoy them. I don't go back and rewatch them like I used to. I used to have both of them on VHS. Oddly enough, I like the second one better than the first one, which is not a popular opinion. but he's great in them. So I have this huge fondness for Roddy Mcdowell, and I think, again, it's mostly due to this Night Gallery story. Yeah, I don't know why I'm just now bringing the box set up. But that's the reason I bought this box set. I mean, there's other episodes I like. There's even an episode that has Vincent Price and Bill Bixby together in it. I didn't know they'd ever done anything together. That's worth it for the price alone. And then there's another actor in here I'm going to mention in just a minute. But I bought this box set for the pilot episode, because I do like the escape route story too. The one about the German officer is really good and has a fantastic, well-deserved ending. But the number one reason was that Roddy McDowell story is so phenomenal that I wanted to be able to watch it whenever I wanted, and totally worth it. I'd love to get it on Blu-ray eventually. I love that story. Number 2 on the list is Burgess Meredith. I love Burgess Meredith. I've talked about that on the channel before. I have this strong affinity for Burgess Meredith. And it's weird because, like, I'm not even a fan of the Rocky movies. Mickey's great. He's fantastic as Mickey in 1, 2, 3, and in that flashback sequence he shot for 5. I love that flashback scene in 5. It's phenomenal. The best part of 5, actually. But I'm not a fan of the Rocky movies. I don't go back and watch them anymore. I loved the Batman TV show, the old 60s show, when I was a kid, and of course Burgess Meredith plays the Penguin in that. That's probably one of the other thing he's most famous for. I don't really go back and watch it now, because I watched it a lot as a kid, watching reruns of it growing up, but I don't really watch it much now. Now, it's his other stuff, especially his Twilight Zone episodes, that I love. He's in my favorite Twilight Zone episode of all time, The Obsolete Man. And if you've never seen it, go watch it. It has a very important message in it that is just as relevant today as it was at the time it was made. It is a phenomenal story with phenomenal acting all around. The guy who plays the antagonist of the story, the guy working for the state, is that Carl Reiner? I can't remember. Whoever it is playing him does a really good job too, but Burgess Meredith is just phenomenal. He is magic. He just transcends acting into, I don't even know what to say. He is just amazing. The whole story, but I especially love at the beginning when they're first telling him he's obsolete and he's standing his ground. I love that line of when the guy talks about how the state has ruled that has proved that God does not exist. And he's like, there is a God. No, you are wrong, Mr. Wordsworth. And he does that line of, you cannot erase God with an edict. Or you can't erase God with an edict. The way he says that is just magical. And I love him in that. And then he's also in my second favorite Twilight Zone episode of all time, which is Time Enough at Last. Of course, one of the most famous stories where he likes to read books. He works at the bank and all he wants to do all day is read. And the ending to that one is phenomenal. You probably already know it, but if you haven't, I won't tell you. But it's a phenomenal ending. I love that story. And again, Burgess Meredith is just amazing in it. He's also in 2 other Twilight Zone episodes. The one where he gets super strength, which is and then the one where he basically plays the devil. Well, he plays the devil. That one is really good, but with an ending that's disappointing. I found the ending disappointing, but I found the episode good. And then he's in an episode of Night Gallery as well. It's a good episode. It's not a great episode, but it's a good episode, and definitely one I enjoyed seeing. And I didn't know he was in it. So when he pops up in it, I'm like, you ever have that? You have those actors like David Warner and like Burgess Meredith that when they pop up in something, you're like, I was actually watching on Tubi, and there was actually an episode of Burke's Law on there, which is another show I like. And it was only one episode of it. That's a TV show with Gene Barry in it. Gene Barry's another one I like. Who was also in the 1953 War of the Worlds. And I didn't know Burgess Meredith was in it. So during the course of the episode, when Gene Barry's interviewing murder suspects and he comes across, I'm sitting there watching, I'm going, that's Burgess Meredith. And I said it out loud. Like, I'm literally by myself watching the TV. No one else is here. And I'm still going, that's Burgess Meredith. Oh my God. I got all excited. I love Burgess Meredith. I just do. And then number 1 on the list, I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing his name right. He's a Scottish actor. I think his name is Nicole. It's spelled Nicol. I think it's pronounced Nicole Williamson. I don't know if a lot of you are familiar with him. I think he's more famous probably for being a stage actor. I think he did a lot of stage stuff. But he's in several things I like. He's in an episode of Columbo, the one where the psychiatrist trains his Dobermans to kill a guy with the code word Rosebud. That's him. I think Kim Cattrall's in that episode too. He's great in that. He's also in The Exorcist 3, playing Father Morning, and while it's a little of an understated role, he's phenomenal in it. The Exorcist 3, just in general, is a very underrated movie. It's a really good movie with one truly amazing jump scare. And everyone, if they like horror movies, should see it. And George C. Scott's in it. George C. Scott's always amazing. And then Nico Williamson is also in the Spawn movie, actually. The 90s Spawn movie I saw in theater when it came out. And for its time in 1997, keep in mind that's a year before Blade came out and kind of changed the game, and a couple of years before X-Men came out and kind of changed the game. For the kind of movie it was fun. It was good. I actually enjoyed it for the time. Now, going back and watching it, the only reason I would want to go back to watch it is Nico Williamson, because he's great in it. He plays Constantio. I can't pronounce the name. It's the guy basically who trained Spawn how to use his powers. He's got that cool blade on his hand. And he's great in that movie. Again, he's just kind of playing a mentor role, an Obi-Wan Kenobi role. But he's good in it. I love that scene when he's trying to fight one of the demons and he pops that blade out and he's like, "Come get your throat cut." He's phenomenal in that movie. I don't think he actually enjoyed that role, because I think that's the role that made him retire and quit acting. But he is actually really, really good in the role. And of course, he is flat out, in my opinion, the definitive version of Merlin, because he does play Merlin in the 1981 movie Excalibur, which is my definitive version of the King Arthur legend. Nigel Terry, or is it Terry Nigel? Nigel Terry is my definitive version of Arthur as well. And we've actually had him in Doctor Who. He played in The Doctor's Daughter as the old man who's the leader of the human faction. So we actually had him in Doctor Who before he passed away a few years ago. But I absolutely love Nico Williamson as Merlin. He is just a phenomenal Merlin. He is easily my favorite version of the character. It's the way he plays the role. I don't know how to put it into words. I'm just in awe. He doesn't look like the traditional Merlin, like the old man with the long beard, but I love his iconic setup with that little hit skull cap. I love his staff. It doesn't look like a traditional Gandalf staff, but I like how the scene when he makes the flame pop up at night when he's talking. His voice is just perfect for the role. I was actually rewatching a few of the scenes from the movie, because I haven't watched Excalibur in a long, long time. I used to have it on VHS. I need to get it on Blu-ray too one day, because I love the movie. Like the scene when Arthur is asking him what the greatest quality a knight can have, and Merlin tells him, truth, truth, yes, above all else, truth, it has to be truth. You should know that. I love the way he does that scene. I love the scene when they say goodbye to each other as Merlin is about to leave to go to another world. That doesn't quite work out. But when they're actually telling each other goodbye in person toward the middle of the movie, that's a really good scene. And you get the bond between them. A kind of almost a father-son role, definitely a mentor-apprentice role. And then the scene at the end when Merlin shows up in Arthur's dreams is probably one of my favorite movie scenes. I mean, it's only a couple minutes long. Of course, at that point, Merlin has been trapped by Morgana, because that's right when Arthur stabbed the sword in the ground and it stunned Merlin, and he lost his staff too, so Morgana was able to trap him, and he'd been sealed away, for years and years and years. But Arthur wakes him up when he is calling his name and punches the rock like it's Stonehenge or whatever. And I love that scene when it wakes Merlin up and you can see him through the crystal there. That whole scene is beautiful. And that bit about you brought me back. You brought me back here where you are to the world of dreams. And he looks at him with that. Is that what you are, Merlin? A dream? And I love that line, that a dream to some, a nightmare to others. I love that scene. It's so wonderful. God, I probably watched that probably a half a dozen times at least a couple days ago. I love that scene. And I just like him as an actor. Again, he's another one. It's really only those 4 things I know him from off the top of my head. But I just like him a lot. When I first realized that was him in that episode of Columbo, I was like, because I didn't recognize him at first, and when I did, I was like, the first time I saw it, because I know he did a lot of stage work before that. But yeah, I would, just with this charisma he has, like I think he played a really good Hamlet. I've heard people talk about, like, in stage work, he did a really good Hamlet. Like, he was just phenomenal as Hamlet. I think it was as Hamlet. I know he's in Hamlet. I think he was playing Hamlet. But apparently he was phenomenal on stage. That's another one, just with that charisma and presence he has in everything I've ever seen him do. Even in Spawn. But especially as Merlin. Again, by far, my definitive Merlin. He's just magic in that role. I would have loved to have seen him in Doctor Who. Classic Who, Modern Who. I would have loved to have seen him in it. So those are my 5 actors I would either like to see or really would have liked to have seen in Doctor Who. I'd like to know what you think of these actors and maybe any of the stuff they were in. I've talked about if you like these shows. What do you think of Excalibur? Do you think it's the best version of the Arthur legend? Of course, I will admit to being a huge fan of the Disney Sword in the Stone cartoon as well. I do love that one, I'll admit. So, comment down below and let me know your thoughts on that and on David Warner as well. Other things to do, click the like button and the subscribe button and the bell for notifications so you never miss out on another video. I also have a Patreon. If you would like to support me on that, there is a link to that in the description below. I want to give a shout out to 2 of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane and the 5th Doctor. I appreciate their continued support and the support of all of my patrons. I also have a P.O. box down there if there's anything you would like to send me, Doctor Who related or otherwise. I also have a link to my Amazon wish list down there as well. I need to put Excalibur on that. Most importantly, though, thank you for watching.